What's going on, everyone? GoodMicWork commentaries back at you with the very first official Winged Eagle podcast. What's up? We're here. I'm ready to launch this thing, ready to go. We got a lot to talk about. I'm going to go through all sorts of different stuff today, and this should be close to how this podcast is going to be formatted and looking going forward, and I'll give you all the details on that here in just a moment. But first things first, I just want to welcome you all to the inaugural edition of my rebranded podcast. I did a test run on this, kind of a pilot episode, a couple of weeks ago, where I just basically came up here and treated it like a live stream, talked with a lot of you, chatted with a lot of you, discussed wrestling news and things like that, and basically gave you an update on what this is going to look like. And I do believe I have a link to that pilot episode up in the top right hand corner if you want to check that out and check out some of the updates. I'm also going to update you on what my plans are for this podcast going forward. I have a few more ideas, and you are going to see some changes, and it is going to be a work in progress. I wanted to launch this thing in August, but I still have a couple of things to do to continue polishing up and getting this thing ready. And we'll talk all about that here. As usual, and it is going to be the case for all of these podcasts going forward, I'm going to put all of the topics that we're going to discuss in the ticker below so you can read through that. We got a lot to get into. I'm probably going to give a rundown, a little bit of a recap of SummerSlam, not really a rundown. Maybe just touch on that one more time, talk about this past week's Raw, this past week's Smackdown, preview the King of the Ring that kicks off this Monday, talk about a lot of different wrestling news, Sasha Banks' return, the latest on the Roman Reigns storyline, his new WWE contract, Buddy Murphy's breakout performance on SmackDown, all sorts of stuff we're going to get into today. Kind of just a nice hodgepodge of crap and lots to get into. And my plan going forward is to do these probably on Saturdays. I know today is Friday, but I wanted to get this thing up here now so it can sit here this weekend. You guys can go back and watch this. But going forward, once SmackDown moves over to Fox, that is going to air on Friday nights. So the best day for this podcast starting this fall will probably be Saturdays, is what I'm going to shoot for. It really is the best day. That way I can get through the whole week of wrestling and make my notes and come up here during the weekend where the audience might be bigger and might be best for viewership overall. And but until then, the days on this is going to vary. I might come up here on Thursdays. I might come up here on Fridays. But SmackDown starts on Fox on October 4th. And then after that, you'll start seeing me on Saturday afternoons, right around this time, I'm guessing. But make sure you follow me on social media, especially on Twitter. That's where I'm going to be making the majority of my announcements. And once I get more accurate details on the podcast and the days that it's going to come up, that's probably where you can find those announcements. As far as how I'm going to handle the chat and things like that for these podcasts, I'm going to give you an update on that first, in case you're wondering. This is going to be a big podcast update before we jump into the wrestling news here. Number one, the day is going to change. Today is Friday. Starting this fall, it's probably going to be on Saturdays. Also, as it relates to the chat, I know I'm up here on Mondays. I live stream Monday Night Raw. I hang out with all of you. That's really not what this podcast is going to be like. I'm not going to ignore the chat. I'm going to answer some questions, and I will answer all of the super chats as well. But it's not going to be just a constant interaction with the chat. I'm probably, for the most part, going to be ignoring the chat and then going through and answering some super chats as we go through. So if you still want to donate, you still want to answer a question, you're welcome to. They will be answered in the podcast, but sometimes I might wait on them and scroll back and answer a few at once and things like that. So it's going to be a little bit less chat interaction and me more focusing on my notes. And I've explained to you guys the reason why I wanted to do this change in the podcast, primarily because the way I was doing it before just wasn't efficient. I was taking way too long to do them. I would record 2 hours of audio, then I would go through and spend a couple of hours editing that audio and then putting it into a YouTube video and putting it all together and then uploading it. And I was doing that weekly, and it was a big waste of time. I mean, not a waste of time, but it was taking up a lot of my time to where I couldn't work on other things on the channel. And with these weekly podcasts, when I'm just discussing the past week of TV, the podcast is essentially obsolete within a week. So I had to come up with a more efficient way to do these podcasts and do these discussions. And I decided that really the best way going forward for me talking about current product is for me to do these things live, or at least try to do them more in one take. So what these podcasts are going to be like on YouTube, some of them are going to be on camera, like right here. As you see, I have changed the camera angle so you got something a little bit better to look at. During the Monday Night Raw streams, you're still going to be looking at my kitchen because all of my screens are right here. But for the podcasts, I figured I would at least give you guys something nicer to look at, like my media shelf. The picture is also going to improve as well. I already have a new webcam in here, nice 4K webcam, but I've got a new computer coming, and I'm waiting till that gets hooked up to put the new webcam in, and then that'll have a much sharper image. As far as the intro goes, I've been struggling with that. I actually ordered a couple of expensive intros for the podcast, did not like the way either one of them came out. So I've got a different idea, and I don't want to waste any more money, so I'm doing something else as far as a permanent intro for the Winged Eagle podcast. I will use one of the ones I didn't like probably for the audio on the website and for the podcast sites. You'll hear that for the next couple of weeks until I get the official intro figured out. But for YouTube, I'm probably just going to stick with the channel bumper. I'm making a new one for the Winged Eagle that you'll see. And then on the podcast sites, I'm trying to come up with something, a nice little audio intro to give my podcast a little bit more of a professional feel. But the ones that I've actually spent the money on so far and paid for, I actually haven't liked. And it wasn't their fault. They just did not provide me with really what I was looking for, and I'm a little bit bummed out that I wasted some money on that. So that is still kind of in the works, and that will be a little flimsy here until I get going in the fall. But other than that, this is pretty much going to be how it is. I'm going to be on camera sometimes. I'm also going to be off camera sometimes. There may be a week where I just don't feel purty, and I ain't got my hair did, and my nails did, and I just don't want to be on camera, and I just want to focus directly on my notes. Those weeks, it's just going to be something else on the screen instead of my face, and that's really not a big deal. If a week here or there I don't feel like being on camera, that's also an option. And there will also be an option for me actually to record these and edit them and upload them. It just depends on how my week goes and if I have time for that, because I would like to dedicate my editing time to other projects, DVD reviews, pay-per-view reviews, this day in histories, mic drops, shit like that. But the current product, I had to come up with something better to where I could just talk about it once a week and get it done. And one of the big problems, one of the biggest criticisms I have of myself is I'm not really good at doing things in one take. With my previous podcasts, I had the luxury of editing. So if I wanted to record a bunch of opinions, I could even talk for 2 or 3 minutes on a particular subject and then decide that I can completely reword that a better way. And I'll go through and retake the whole thing again. And then in editing, I can just cut out the first take and it all sounds good. So that's what I was doing for so many years, but I realized it's just way too time consuming. So I have to get better about just speaking and staying on point and not stuttering and stumbling and sounding like a fucking moron up here. I got to get these ideas and these thoughts and these opinions out, and I got to do it in a quicker way than what I was previously doing, because I love working on the channel. I love doing stuff for the channel, but I would rather spend most of my editing for videos that have a shelf life that can sit on YouTube for months or years at a time, and people can always refer back to them. As a matter of fact, just yesterday, I re-uploaded my Top 10 WrestleManias podcast, nearly 2.5 hours. It got taken down by WWE because I used 7 seconds of video footage of Hulk Hogan body slamming Andre the Giant. That got matched, and they took the video down. I didn't even bother appealing it. It wasn't worth it. I just went and fixed the couple little bits of video footage in there with still images, re-uploaded that yesterday, so if you want to take a look at that, you can, and it is still available on my website for download and the podcast sites and all of this, or on all of that, excuse me. As far as these podcasts go, I'm going to be releasing the audio of these. They will be available just like my previous podcasts were. You can download the audio on my website, GoodMicWorkCommentaries.com. It'll be on iTunes. It'll be on Stitcher Radio, Spotify, wherever you like to listen to your podcasts. The only catch is that sometimes, for example, today, the audio's not going to be available right away. As soon as I'm done with this podcast, I got to go to work, and I'm not going to have time to get that audio uploaded to the website and to the podcast site. So if you give it about 4 to 6 hours from now, it should be available on the website. So if you would rather prefer to listen to this in your car, in your headphones while you're working out, at home, or whatever, and not have to look at my face, you're just going to have to wait a few hours until it's available on the website. In most cases, however, that won't be the deal. I'll be able to get it up right away. Probably 30 minutes after I shut the podcast off, it'll be available on the website. But today, and like a few other days, depending on what my work schedule is, you might just have to wait a few hours. So that's the only chunk of bad news I have for you there. And that should be about it for the podcast updates. I do want to start getting into the news. I've kind of got a split screen here because I have changed my my camera angle, so a lot of my stuff is not easily accessible to me. So I kind of got my notes and the stream here on a split screen, and I will be referring over to YouTube to take a look at some super chats and all of that. Before we jump into the wrestling news, I do want to do that real quick and just go over here to the chat and say hello to you guys. For those of you who are in here, Less than 100 people so far, so that is a very low number, but it's Friday afternoon. I think when I move this podcast to Saturday afternoons, it'll be a lot better. Hello to everybody that is here. Spaz Phoenix, thank you for a couple of quick super chats. I'm going to answer these now, and then I'll go back and answer some other ones later on. The first one is for $2. Thank you very much, dude. The pod looks great as always. Glad I caught it. I'm glad you're here too, man. I appreciate it. Y'all go over to Spaz Phoenix's YouTube channel and give him a subscription. And you got another one here for $5. I survived my 5 nights of live wrestling. Destiny, TakeOver, SummerSlam, Raw, and SmackDown. Tagged you in a few pics. I did see that. You had a long weekend. You do live in the Toronto area, so you were able to experience all of that. And yeah, that's a lot of wrestling. By the time you got to SmackDown, I would imagine you were pretty tired. And thank you for the super chats and the support as always. Speaking of SmackDown, got some interesting news I put up on Twitter a couple of days ago. SmackDown's first show on the Fox network on October 4th will be coupled as their 20th anniversary celebration. It's going to be held at Staples Center. I got my tickets a couple days ago. I'm going to be there, even staying at the Marriott directly across the street from Staples, so I will be there. I put it on Twitter. Some of you guys have already DM'd me that you're planning on going or going to be in the area. We'll definitely plan some sort of a meet and greet. I also heard from Aaron Rift in a DM. Him and Jeff Meacham are going to be there. I hooked up with those guys during Survivor Series, so there might be a collab going on or something there. I'm not really sure yet, but it definitely looks like before the show on Friday, October 4th, definitely down to meet some fans, probably right outside the arena, because there's plenty of restaurants and bars and meeting places around there, and even a few at the show too. So my DMs are always open. If you do happen to be in Staples Center that night, shoot me a DM. I'll let you know where I'm sitting. You come over and say hi. Should be a lot of fun, but I'm really excited to go to that SmackDown show. Just another kind of significant show that I can add to my resumes of significant shows I've been to. Hopefully it'll be a good one. Hopefully we'll see a big title match, maybe even a big title change. You would think the WWE is going to be pulling out the big guns for their very first show on Fox from a big market and venue like this. I'm hoping we're going to see some big things go down, maybe even some legends. Who knows? They got probably a lot of stuff to cram in to a 2-hour show there, but I am very, very, very excited about that. As far as what else I have for my own personal updates, I think that is it. Wanted to fill you guys in on the latest with the podcast and let you know that I'm going to SmackDown on Fox on October 4th, and it should be a lot of fun. Before I start getting into this week of TV, we'll talk about a little bit of pro wrestling news first. Although I did not check the wrestling news this morning. Shit, I actually meant to make a couple of more notes. So I don't think anything too crazy has happened because nobody's tagged me in any sort of crazy news on Twitter. So we'll go through the news that I have written down. Then we'll talk again, maybe a little bit about SummerSlam, touch on Raw and SmackDown, preview the King of the Ring, preview Clash of Champions, and talk about a lot of the storylines. First thing I want to talk about is Roman Reigns apparently has signed a new WWE contract, multi-year deal. Wasn't even really sure that his contract was that close to being up, but this might be more of an extension type of deal. Not a big surprise that he's sticking around. Roman Reigns is probably the last guy I would expect to say, nope, I'm going to go to AEW now. WWE, I'm sure, locked him up for a very beautiful amount of money, and it's really in Roman's best interest, a guy like Roman anyway, to stay in WWE because he can't get any bigger anywhere else. You know, a lot of guys, need to leave WWE in order to find greener pastures. Roman's on the greenest fucking pasture there is. No reason for him to go anywhere, and I am not surprised at all. He's signed. He will be WWE for life. Apparently, there was an incident over SummerSlam weekend involving Alicia Fox. She was sent home due to some sort of a drunken incident with a fan. I have not seen any other details about this incident other than that, and that she was sent home. But one thing I do remember is I believe that Arn Anderson was let go. Was he not fired for letting Alicia Fox wrestle drunk? Wasn't she the one that he allowed to go in inebriated in the match or whatever that caused him to lose his job? So Alicia's got some problems. She has been there for like 10 years now. She has not been used much on TV. When she does, she's pretty much a joke or a crazy person. She's never really had any sort of a serious push. It's like they've started to a couple of times, but they never really did. I think she's great. I've always enjoyed Alicia Fox, but it sounds like she's been with that company for so long, she's just kind of complacent and getting bored, and she's starting to make some bad decisions. So she may need to be let go. If you notice, she was actually on the stage during the Raw reunion as like one of the legends. Why Alicia Fox is lumped in the same sentence with Ric Flair and Hogan and Austin, I have no idea, but she was out there. That was pretty funny. So whatever her deal is, she needs to get her shit together. At least she's not driving and endangering lives like Jimmy Uso. So I don't know if it would really, I don't know if that would be hypocritical of WWE to let Alicia Fox go, but keep Jimmy Uso on. So I guess, as the case with any incident like this, Alicia Fox is responsible for her own actions, correct? It's pretty much all WWE's probably going to say on the topic. Excuse me while I sip some water here. There has also been talk of NXT moving over to FS1 once SmackDown moves to Fox. And we've been talking about that for maybe a year, close to a year, something like that, about NXT eventually getting a TV deal. And then when Fox got the SmackDown show, we were like, oh shit, they might be able to put NXT on something like FS1. And that is the big rumor right now. And we all know what night of the week NXT is on. It's on Wednesdays right now, currently on the WWE Network. I believe it's only an hour show. They will likely increase this to 2 hours and will likely go head to head with All Elite Wrestling. And you know what? I like it. I think NXT would be a more attainable goal as far as AEW actually competing with something. If AEW is trying to compete with the entire umbrella of WWE, absolutely impossible. I mean, hell, to me, it's impossible to compete with any part of WWE, but if they're trying to take on WWE itself, no way. But if they set their sights a little bit smaller and says, okay, WWE has a developmental program, NXT, that has great wrestling, that should be our primary focus. That should be who we should be concerned with competing with. And maybe WWE sees that too. They want to show AEW that not only can you not compete with us, but you can't compete with our developmental program. Wednesdays might be really interesting come this fall, and I hope they do it, because that's going to push AEW to really provide compelling TV, because they got a lot of work to do. They got a whole roster of people that they're going to have to introduce to an audience, a mainstream audience, and it might take some time for these characters to get a little bit more well-known by a more casual wrestling audience, because only hardcore fans are going to know who the fuck Orange Cassidy is. You know what I mean? Who incidentally just signed with All Elite Wrestling, and that was kind of a big topic of conversation on Twitter. People are wondering if, I guess there's kind of like a little war going on. Not a war, but some differing opinions on more like wrestling traditionalists and people who just enjoy wrestling and understand that it's taken on many different forms here in modern times. In 2019, the business does not look like it did in 1985. Some people feel like it should still look like it does in 1985, and some people enjoy the evolution of wrestling and enjoy the fact that it's taken on a life of its own. You got all different shapes and sizes of guys now. The marks are in the ring. The wrestling nerds are in the ring now. And some more old school guys, some more grittier guys resent that. Jim Cornette famously hates anything that's silly at all in wrestling, which is just crazy because he did a lot of silly things. And I love Jim Cornette to death, but man, he is taking things so far to where he is just disgusted with guys like Joey Ryan and Flippy Shit and Orange Cassidy and guys that just don't go out there and wrestle the way Jim feels like wrestling should be. And that's kind of sparked a little bit of a debate on two sides on social media. I've seen it from podcasters and other Twitter people. Some people are firmly behind the mindset of somebody like Jim Cornette, and then others are, appreciative of wrestling just kind of being a different and evolving. I mean, it is kind of in a boom period right now, sort of. I mean, independent wrestling is very big. You got a lot of big, successful companies out there. WWE, New Japan is kicking ass. TNA and Ring of Honor are alive. And All Elite Wrestling, from what it looks like, is going to be a huge success. They already have a TV deal. Their first couple of shows have been big successes and fun. And I think it's a great time to be a wrestling fan. And I don't understand why we have to be so mad about anything. If you don't like the fact that somebody flips an opponent upside down with his dick, then don't watch indie wrestling. I just don't see the big deal. So I'm surprised that the beefs, and the war of the words is getting as nasty as it is when it really shouldn't be. It's none of us are even in the fucking ring, and we're debating if people should be there or not. So I don't know. It's not something that I really associate myself with. I don't really have a dog in the fight. I don't give a shit. It's pro wrestling, and I understand that pro wrestling is wacky and weird, and it just didn't get weird in the last few years. It's been weird. Way back when Jim Cornette was a manager, they were doing stupid, unbelievable shit that was silly and hokey. I think every bit as much as they do now. Just the size of the wrestlers have changed. The mentality has changed. Everybody's smart to the business now, and that used to not be that way 30 years ago. And everybody is critiquing and overanalyzing everything. And we'll talk about it later with Sasha Banks returning on Raw. All I saw on Twitter, we weren't talking about, Sasha Banks is back, awesome, WWE could use that shot in the arm in the women's division. No, instead it was fans debating on whether or not she should be put in a program right away with Becky Lynch, and if that's proper, fuck off. Who cares? Can't we just say she's back, good, let WWE handle whatever's going on within her internally? If the fans don't feel like she deserves to be thrust into this position right away after she walked out and acted like a crybaby, let them handle it. We don't know what's going on behind the scenes. We're not talking to Sasha Banks every day. WWE management is. We haven't had a meeting with Sasha Banks. WWE management has. We haven't talked to her. We don't know what the fuck is going on. So if they've worked something out behind the scenes, that's their business. And I'm just surprised that debates that would not have even existed 20 years ago, 30 years ago, are now the only thing that the fans focus on now. But we'll talk about Sasha Banks more in a minute. But that sort of Twitter mentality, and the argumentative nature of the fans, I noticed a lot when discussing AEW, WWE, the Jim Cornette stuff, Jim Cornette versus Ryan Satin, which has been pretty entertaining to watch on Twitter. But it's just, it reminds me of one thing Jim Cornette one time said in a shoot interview. I don't know who he was talking about. I don't know what. He was mad about something, but he talked about being in his own home. And he goes, why would I make myself mad in my own home? That's where I find peace and comfort. Well, every freaking Twitter rampage this guy goes on, I'm assuming is right from his recliner in his living room, where he is furious, head exploding mad. It's somebody like Ryan Satin. Like, who cares? Ryan Satin's like a fucking pussycat. And I know a lot of people don't like him. Oh, he's a fucking pussy liberal, or he's passive aggressive or whatever. Dude's never been anything but nice to me. And I think some people are just upset that there's nice people out there in the wrestling world. You don't have to be an asshole. You don't have to be argumentative on every single point. You don't have to waste so much time hammering home a point that really at the end of the day nobody cares about. And I just see way too much of that on social media. So that's my little social media rant there. But when I had my notes about NXT versus AEW and the Orange Cassidy signing and all of that, it got me thinking about all that stuff that's kind of going on in social media. And it's like that in every sport, football, basketball. The whole NBA basketball world is fucking upside down because of these all NBA 2000 teams that have been announced. And, Kobe shouldn't be on this and this guy shouldn't be on this. I'm like, who gives a shit? I just couldn't imagine, taking so much time to argue about something that doesn't matter. You know what I mean? So anyway, let me know what you guys think about all of that stuff. AEW versus NXT, yesterday's wrestling versus today's wrestling. Hit me with all that stuff in the chat, and we'll go through and talk about that later. Like I said, WWE is also bringing back the King of the Ring tournament. That was announced this past Monday night on Raw. It kind of came out of nowhere. We weren't expecting that. I wasn't expecting that. And we didn't hear any rumors to that effect. So they announced that on Raw. At first, I thought the entire tournament was going to take place this Monday. That's not the case. It just kicks off this Monday. It is a 16-man tournament. All of the combatants have been announced, and there is one interesting tournament final here. The semifinals are going to be held at Madison Square Garden. WWE's holding Raw and SmackDown there on September 9th and 10th, which I don't remember the last time Raw or SmackDown was in the Garden. You guys have to fill me in on that. By the way, let me check over here and make sure we're still up and running. Yeah, we're good. All right, I got some super chats to answer. I do see those guys, Nathan and Stone Cold. I will get to those here in a little bit. Just wanted to make sure we're still here. By the way, smash that like button, will you? Would you hook me up with some likes and make sure you subscribe? And I will be here this Monday live reacting to Raw. But I'm really excited about this Madison Square Garden show because WWE does not run many shows there anymore at all, aside from live events and house shows. I'm guessing cost has a lot to do with that. They're always over at Barclays now. So the fact that Raw and SmackDown is coming back to MSG is really fun, and the semifinals of the King of the Ring will be taking place on those nights, so that's pretty cool. The combatants, or the participants in this year's King of the Ring, are pretty good. There are some big names here, and I think that aside from maybe 3 of them, I think anybody could win this thing. So from Raw, we've got The Miz, Ricochet, Cedric Alexander, Samoa Joe, Drew McIntyre, Baron Corbin, Sami Zayn, and Cesaro from the Raw brand. On SmackDown, we've got Kevin Owens, Ali, Apollo Crews, Chad Gable, Elias, Andrade, Buddy Murphy, and Shelton Benjamin. Now, the brackets to this were also announced just about an hour ago. I've got these on my phone. I don't have them pulled up here. And one thing I found was interesting is that they did not mix the Raw and SmackDown guys. So basically, they're guaranteeing we're going to get a Raw versus SmackDown final, which would be great if the wild card rule didn't make the brand split meaningless. Now it's like, I don't care. I think they should have just mixed all the talent up and not put Raw on one side and SmackDown on the other side. So the matchups for the Raw brand are going to be Cesaro versus Samoa Joe, Ricochet versus Drew McIntyre, Cedric Alexander versus Sami Zayn, and The Miz versus Baron Corbin. Over on SmackDown, we've got Kevin Owens versus Elias, Ali versus Buddy Murphy. Damn, that'll be good. Chad Gable versus Shelton Benjamin. That'll be interesting. And Apollo Crews versus Andrade. So when you look at the field here, excuse me, when you look at the field here, what's cool about this tournament is it really could go to anybody. And I know a lot of people are going to have opinions on this. Gable should win. Owens should win. McIntyre should win. Andrade should win. I don't care who should win. I just hope somebody who deserves to win wins. And not just one person. There's not just one only candidate here. Here are the names that I'm ruling out, because there's more names I think that can win this than can't. The names I'm probably likely ruling out: number one, Elias. Don't think he's going to win it. I also don't think Ricochet will win it either, so I'm going to rule out Ricochet. And possibly Apollo Crews. I think maybe Apollo Crews could be eliminated from that, although maybe WWE would go with him. And I might even say Cedric or Cesaro. Even though Cesaro would be great, Cedric would be great, I think I can kind of rule those guys out as well. But I think The Miz could easily win. I think Samoa Joe could win. I think Drew McIntyre could win. I don't want to say this. I don't want to say it. I think Baron Corbin could win. God damn, could you imagine in this great field of 16 talents they have if this fucker wins this tournament? But it could happen. Sami Zayn I should probably rule out too. He's been jobbing pretty hard, so he probably won't win it. Although Sami would be an excellent choice, because when a heel wins the King of the Ring, they can do a lot of shit talking, and there's not too many better shit talkers right now than Sami Zayn and possibly Samoa Joe. But over on the SmackDown side, Kevin Owens would be your odds-on favorite there. I'm going to talk about him in a minute, but he had a great promo on SmackDown, really putting over the importance of the King of the Ring, which I appreciated. He did well, really promoting that event. Good on Kevin Owens. Ali, we've been waiting for him to break out ever since his injury that kind of derailed his little push that got handed over to Kofi Kingston. So he's an option as well. Apollo Crews, I'm kind of ruling out. Like I said, Chad Gable is another guy that a lot of fans want to see. Gable is great, very underrated. I don't know what they're going to wind up doing with him. I think a Gable and Johnny Gargano feud at some point would be a lot of fun. Don't know if either one of those guys are going to head back to 205 Live more permanently or what, but Gable would be a fun choice, but again, I don't really see it. Elias, we can rule out. He's useless. Andrade would be another guy, because Andrade just had a huge win on Monday Night Raw, knocking off Rey Mysterio in 2 straight falls in their 2 out of 3 falls match. And Buddy Murphy, with his breakout performance last week on SmackDown against Roman Reigns, could be a great idea as well. And then Shelton Benjamin is another guy I'd probably rule out. So I'm going to say Samoa Joe, Drew McIntyre, Kevin Owens, and Andrade would probably be my 4 leaders there as far as who's going to win this thing. Second tier, maybe Baron Corbin, Miz, I don't know, and maybe Chad Gable. If it was up to me in this current field that we have, I would say based on his promo on SmackDown, I'd go Kevin Owens. Kevin Owens is a babyface. He talked about how he grew up watching the King of the Ring and appreciating it. He could be a really fun person to win. But you got to wonder what his deal with Shane McMahon is, and that whole issue may not be over. There may be one more blow-off match, maybe with something a little bit more, a stipulation that's a little bit more permanent. Maybe this time Shane McMahon's WWE career is on the line, so there may be one more match. If Shane costs Kevin Owens this King of the Ring, that could lead to that. So I don't know. I really don't have an absolute favorite. There's not one person in this field that I absolutely want to see win it. But I could be happy with a lot of guys. I could be really happy with Andrade. I feel like he's on a roll. I could definitely be happy with Drew McIntyre on the heel side. Andrade or Drew for sure. On the babyface side, I think Cedric Alexander would be fun. I think Kevin Owens would be fun. I don't know. Is Cesaro a face? I don't even know. But Cesaro I've kind of given up on. But anyway, the King of the Ring does kick off this Monday. I don't know which matches are announced for the show. They probably will not let us know until probably Monday afternoon, I would assume. But it kicks off this week, and we'll see how it winds up going. Many of you are excited about the King of the Ring. I think when they announced it this past Monday night during the live stream, I was a little bit critical of it. I'm like, I don't know if I give a shit about it. But after seeing the response on social media, seeing the response from the audience, most fans are really happy that this is being brought back. So I'm on board. I'm ready to see some great matches here, and I love the field. Couple of missing names. You know, if it was up to me, I might take out Elias and insert Aleister Black or something like that. But for me, I'm not really one of those, oh, well, what about so-and-so guys? You know, I don't give a shit. If somebody you like isn't in this tournament, who cares? You know, if they're not going to win the tournament, I really don't care if they're in the tournament. You know what I mean? So if WWE didn't plan for Aleister Black to be the winner of the King of the Ring, then I'm fine with him just being left out. You know what I mean? And I think the field is also strong enough where you don't necessarily need, you know, it packed full with all contenders, you know, because I think WWE, what do you guys think? I would guess that WWE has no idea who's going to win this yet. You know, so we can't speculate and we can't be so sure who's going to win when WWE probably doesn't even know who's going to win, because the finals of this are likely going to be, what, a month away? I mean, if the semis are September 9th and 10th, it's going to be the week after that for the finals. So I don't even know. Is that going to take place at Clash of Champions? I'm not even sure. So yeah, we're looking at a month until this thing is finalized anyway, and that is way down the line. WWE is rewriting SmackDowns and Raws 1 hour before the show. You think they know who the hell's going to win the King of the Ring? No, they don't. Also, got some spoilers to announce. Actually, I'm not going to announce the spoilers, really. We did have a big match take place on the next set of NXT TV tapings. And it was just to give you a hint, I'm not going to spoil it for you. If you want to go online and see what I'm talking about here, you can. But there was one match at TakeOver that I got wrong, that I predicted wrong. Every other match I got right. The one match I predicted wrong, they had a rematch at the NXT TV tapings, and this time the opponent that I picked won. So you can maybe kind of deduct what that one is there, but that's the only kind of hint I will give you. And I don't like to spoil things if you care about that sort of thing, but just keep that in mind that we did have a big match take place. And it's interesting because it's what I originally predicted during TakeOver. And I predicted this match to go one way because of a specific reason. And I mentioned that reason, and now it turns out that that might actually be the case. So the whole weekend, I only got one match wrong on TakeOver, and I got every match at SummerSlam right, too. Sorry to keep bragging about that, but my predictions were on point. Speaking of SummerSlam, it was getting an overwhelmingly so grade from everybody. Not everybody loved it, but not everybody hated it. Overall, you guys were giving it anywhere between a C+ and a B+. I think Seth Rollins really won over the crowd in that main event. We haven't really been loving Seth Rollins as a babyface, but his performance against Brock Lesnar and beating that guy clean again, I thought made for a really good moment. And I'm a Seth Rollins fan. Yeah, he's a little boring as a babyface on the mic and stuff, but we got to remember that this guy can fucking go. And his matches are great. And WWE obviously feels strongly enough about this guy going forward, being one of their main stars, that they're kind of almost turning him into Roman Reigns. What Seth Rollins did to Brock Lesnar at SummerSlam is something that I would expect Roman Reigns to do to Brock Lesnar. But guess what? Roman Reigns was never able to do that to Brock. Roman did beat him last year in that match at SummerSlam, but not convincing like the way Seth did. And he didn't beat him twice, in a 4-month span or whatever. So for the most part, every time that Roman has gotten in the ring with Brock, Brock has owned him. Owned him at WrestleMania, owned him all over the place. So the fact that Seth seems to be the guy that WWE is pushing as their megastar now is kind of interesting, and I'm wondering how long it's going to take for the wrestling fans to start now shifting their anger, because they're already annoyed at Seth by the way he behaves on social media. He's not getting over and connecting as a babyface to them, for most people anyway. So it's only a matter of time, it's true, until the fans start having the same complaints about Roman that they do about Seth. Always being shoved down our throats. He always wins. # Seth Rollins wins. We're probably already there, but if we're not there yet, expect to start seeing shit like that all over social media and YouTube. That's why I think it would be best if Seth Rollins did a heel turn and just went heel, because now he's beaten Brock twice in a couple of months, and he can pull the Chris Jericho, I beat Austin and The Rock in the same night forever now. I beat Brock Lesnar twice. I beat him at WrestleMania and at SummerSlam. I'm the toughest motherfucker in this company. And Seth is kind of right. When you do that to Brock Lesnar, when you beat down the biggest badass the company has ever seen, and you do that twice in 4 months, that's some bragging rights right there. So it might be good for Seth to go heel, in the future. I kind of hope that he does. And I don't know what's on tap for him at Clash of Champions. I don't know who his next challenger is going to be. He worked with AJ Styles on Raw. There was a little bit of an interaction there with Braun Strowman, who I actually thought if Brock Lesnar retained, Strowman would be the guy they would go with. They were basically going to try to make another babyface, maybe do with Strowman what they should have done with him a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, and maybe try to do that with him now by having him annihilate Brock Lesnar. But now that not only Braun Strowman and Roman Reigns are both left off the SummerSlam card, I'm wondering if title shot is in Braun Strowman's future. And a babyface Braun versus a heel Rollins would be weird. I don't even think that would really match. But they might even be setting up a six-man, who knows, with Ricochet, Seth, and Strowman against the OC or something. Not really sure what's going on there. But we'll talk about that right here, actually, because Seth Rollins did open up Monday Night Raw this past week and had a victory celebration, and said that he owned the beast, he slayed the beast, and he was right. Promos aside, sappy promos and shitty babyface work aside, I think all of the fans do appreciate that, because if you remember, the fans were freaking out over Brock Lesnar. When he came back and won that briefcase, fans were pissed. When he cashed in the briefcase at Extreme Rules, fans were more pissed. So it seemed to me that we shouldn't care who the hell takes the belt off of this guy as long as he's not holding the belt hostage. So sometimes I just don't know what the fans want. I think Seth Rollins is an excellent worker, and despite some of his problems, he's still a workhorse of the company that should be a very, very decorated champion. And now he has 2 big victories over Brock, and I just hope that he doesn't continue on this same path. To me, it feels like WWE is desperate to do with him like they did with Roman. They want to force him on us as a babyface. And I think that was what was behind his promo on the Go Home show, where he was just like, he was all sappy and sad or whatever, but he just said, he goes, I'm going to beat Brock, I guarantee it. That I kind of liked. He's basically like, I know I'm getting my ass kicked out here, but damn it, it's not going to happen this Sunday. I will beat this guy. And he did. And the selling job that he did the week before that, taking the ass kicking from Brock on the ambulance and the stretcher and all of that, was great stuff. Seth can work. I'm willing to let go. I'm willing to let some of his shitty promo work slide a little bit, because Seth has never been the best promo, but he's never been a guy that we've really been saying is the worst promo ever. Fans are always real critical about Roman Reigns. Nobody ever got over that suffering succotash shit. Bothered him so bad, they still won't shut the fuck up about it. And the tater tots and all the other dumb shit he said. Now it feels like we're getting that with Seth Rollins. WWE is scripting him in these overly babyface situations, trying to get him over as a babyface with us and failing miserably. At this point, you might as well just have Seth tell the audience to fuck off. It's built in right there. It would be so easy to turn him heel at this point, because the fans are on his case a little bit. And he can just pull Samoa Joe, who we thought was going to turn babyface. And he told the crowd last week on Raw, no, fuck y'all. You thought I was the one that attacked Roman Reigns. I don't forgive any one of you. So it'd be really easy for Seth Rollins just to point to some of these social media issues and some of the criticisms that the fans have been giving him as his reason for turning heel. I think it could work. Might as well at this point. So I don't know if it'll happen now, maybe down the road, maybe closer to Survivor Series or the beginning of the year. And at this point, I want to hear what you guys think. How long do you think Seth Rollins' title run lasts now that he's slayed the beast again? And when it does end, who ends it? Does a heel end it? Does a babyface end it? Does Brock Lesnar return and end it? Does John Cena return and end it? Do they put him in a match with Braun Strowman and Strowman takes the belt? Strowman still has not won that Universal title, as crazy as that sounds. I'm interested to see or to hear what you guys have to say. And all right, got about 100 people in here. Do me a favor, smash that thumbs up button for me, and I would appreciate it. In Seth Rollins' promo on Monday night when he's celebrating with his brand new red belt, he's interrupted by AJ Styles and the OC. This leads to a match in the main event. It was Seth Rollins versus AJ Styles. I thought that maybe this was going to be our Clash of Champions match. Now, it still might be that, but we've already gotten this match on pay-per-view a few months ago when Seth first won the belt, didn't we? We did, right? And this week on Raw did end in a DQ when the OC, who was on the outside of the ring, Gallows and Anderson, just attacked Seth Rollins right in the middle of the match. Referee calls for the bell. They beat the hell out of him. Ricochet and Braun Strowman come down to the ring to make the save. And you had Braun Strowman with the belt. He actually picks up the belt, hands it to Seth, shakes his hand, kind of like a show of respect. Like, damn, you took down the beast, son. Here's your belt. But definitely a little tease that there could be a match there. So at Clash of Champions, what do you think we get? Do you think we get a return of AJ and Seth? Maybe one of those title for title type of situations? Or do you have Seth Rollins and Braun Strowman? Do you put them together in a babyface match? What do you do there at Clash? And whatever they do, I think Seth will hold on to the belt after Clash of Champions. I do not think he's going to drop it right now. I think if anybody's going to be dropping their belt at Clash of Champions, it's going to be the champion over on SmackDown, if you know what I mean. So I think whatever Seth does next month, he survives. So that's either against AJ or that's against Strowman, or maybe it's against somebody else random that we're not even thinking of. We'll find out probably more this week on Raw. The other big news coming out of this past week's Raw was the return of Sasha Banks. Now, we've heard that she could be showing back up any day. I think a lot of us were expecting her to show up. I thought we might see her at SummerSlam, even though I didn't think she really fit in to the Bayley and Ember Moon match. And on Raw, you had Natalya coming out there. Her and Becky Lynch opened up SummerSlam. Natalya tapped out to Becky Lynch in the submission match. She had her arm in a sling. And she's out there to cut a really shitty, crappy, sad promo. And she's doing kind of a bad job at it. I like Natty. I don't want to shit on her, but not fun whenever she's doing these sad little promos. And then she starts mentioning her dad, which was very sad. I think Jim passed away, last year before SummerSlam. And then she's interrupted by Sasha Banks. The music hits. Michael Cole with the boss time in my ear, just fucking pull my ears off and throw them in a river. And we have to hear him say that again. And she comes out there, strutting to the ring. Nice ovation from the crowd. Gets in the ring, gives Natalya a hug. And I loved this because I'm doing the stream. I'm doing the live stream on Monday watching this, and I'm like, she's got to hit her. Sasha Banks cannot come back as a babyface. Not after the way she left, the way the rumor mill has been spreading about why she left and what she did and her frustrations and things like that. I think it would be really hard for her to come back as a babyface. I think she should come back as a heel. So when she's out there, I knew something was up. Even her hair. I said, I'm like, what's up with her hair? Is she wearing a wig? That's what I said when she was making her entrance. The purple hair didn't even look right. But to Sasha's credit, I love that she didn't drag it out. I love that she didn't make it too obvious because she gave Natalya a hug and then she went to go call for the microphone. And I thought she was actually going to grab the mic and talk for a little bit before turning heel. But she starts to walk over to grab the mic and then immediately turns around and nails Natty with a right forearm right to the face. Down goes Natty, and Sasha immediately rips the wig off to reveal blue hair. I mean, and it was just a punch and a rip off of the wig. I thought that was so well done. And the crowd popped hard. Natty, poor Natty, who is just pouring her heart out to the audience. And what are they doing? They're chanting, "Thank you, Sasha." The person that's supposed to be the heel in this situation, kicking the shit out of an injured babyface who's crying about her deceased father, and the fans are loving it. That's great. So Sasha Banks, we needed her, you know? I mean, I've even said when she was gone, I'm like, if Sasha Banks never comes back, who fucking cares? I don't even care. But the way the women's division is right now, and WWE not knowing really which way is up, I think Sasha Banks and Becky Lynch make for a really fun feud. So Sasha is beating the shit out of Natalya. Becky comes out to make the save. Sasha beats the hell out of her too, wears out Becky with a steel chair, and walks away and leaves both Becky and Natalya laying there. And that's definitely going to set up Sasha Banks versus Becky Lynch. The only one critique I have of the whole segment, I thought the whole segment was really well done. I thought Sasha looked great. I thought the whole thing was pulled off well. But I think Corey Graves on commentary went a little bit overboard. He was so overdoing it with his hatred for Sasha Banks. He was going full Bobby the Brain Heenan at Bash of the Beach 96 when Hogan turned heel. What have I been saying all these years? I told you this guy was a piece of shit. You know, I'm fine with Corey Graves trying to express that he does not like Sasha Banks. No problem. But he spent the whole time doing it to the point where I thought the segment should have been about Sasha Banks' return, not about how much Corey Graves hates Sasha Banks. And that was really my only critique there is I think Graves took it a few steps too far, and he needed to shut the fuck up and let the let the segment just grow like organically like that. Let the fans get into what they're seeing, and instead he's screaming in our ear about what a piece of shit Sasha Banks is. So, Graves is supposed to be kind of a heelish commentator, and here he's shitting on the heel. I just didn't think it worked. So if Graves wanted to make a comment like that, fine, say it once or twice, say it in your typical Corey Graves way, but he spent the entire time bitching about her, and I just didn't think it was a very good look. So that might be the only thing I would change there. Like I said, a lot of people are also debating whether or not Sasha Banks deserves to be in this situation, and I just think that's such a stupid waste of time to even care. I've seen people say, I got to be honest with you, I got a lot of problems with this. I'm like, who gives a shit if you have a problem with it? Nobody fucking cares what you think. So I just am surprised how many people have to weigh in on this. To me, I thought it was good. I thought the segment was good. And to be honest with you, I'm looking forward to the match because I was not looking forward to Becky Lynch versus Natalya at SummerSlam. I thought that match sucked. I haven't looked forward to a whole lot that Becky Lynch has done so far. Her feud with Lacey Evans was kind of like, yeah. So now she's running into somebody, a 5-time champion or however many times. Sasha Banks has held the women's title. She's had classic matches with Charlotte. She's a big part of their women's division, and she was at one time a hell of a lot more dominant than Becky Lynch was. So I think at least this gives us a good, solid match for the women's division. And if you want to debate whether Sasha deserves it or not, fine. But to me, it's just a waste of time. I'm happy that we now are likely going to get a really good and a really fun match at Clash of Champions to where we can actually speculate if Becky Lynch's title run is in jeopardy. She might actually drop it to Sasha here. Who knows? So I'm excited about the match, and I think it's going to be one of the better Becky Lynch matches and feuds that she's had since she was launched at WrestleMania. So welcome back, Sasha Banks. I don't know what went on behind the scenes or how they convinced you to come back or what was worked out or agreed upon, but I'm glad you're here, and I'm not bitching about it. We also had a ton of 24/7 title changes on Monday Night Raw. I believe the Revival won the belt. They were in the middle of a match or something like that, and R-Truth is running around with the belt. He wound up in the ring. Both of the Revival guys pinned him. So Dash and Dawson are now 24/7 champions, and I think R-Truth wound up winning it back from them, and they announced how many times Truth has won the belt, but I forgot. I want to say he's like a 12-time or 13-time 24/7 champion in its short history. So he wins it again, starts running away, runs into Elias backstage, who then beats R-Truth for it, and from what I understand, Elias is still your current 24/7 champion. He has not lost the belt. I think Drake Maverick tried to crash him at a recording session, or maybe R-Truth did, and he was on SmackDown in a referee's capacity, but the 24/7 rule was lifted, which I don't like that. It's they've done this a couple of times with the 24/7 title. They've had a situation where they've had the champion out there, but they said, "Oh, we're suspending the 24/7 rules for right now, just for now." Well, then it's not a 24/7 title. It's a 23/7 title, or a 23-hour and 50-minute /7 title. It's either 24/7 or it's not. So I think they should stop doing that. Even if Elias is out there in a referee capacity, guess what? You can lose the belt. So I don't like that they do that. I think it should be just 24/7 across the board, no matter what. And not some asshole authority figure like Shane McMahon can decide just 1 week to change it. Because if you change it, you essentially change the name of the title, and that's stupid. So that's one thing I would do differently. But these 24/7 segments, basically ever since it started, have been hit and miss. Sometimes I'm just looking like, are you for real? They're doing this. And then other times I'm laughing my balls off. So it just depends on the situation. This past week on Raw was okay. I loved Raw Reunion with Briscoe and Patterson and everybody winning it. I thought that was fun. Even though it was stupid, I thought it was fun. So it just depends with me. Sometimes I find it very entertaining. Sometimes I don't. And now Elias has been rendered to down to one of these 8 jobbers that constantly chase that title around. Heath Slater and EC3, and none of these guys are winning it. They're chasing it, but only the same 2 guys are winning it, which makes the whole division even funnier in my mind. I'm going to mention a couple of things about Monday Night Raw, then I will go back and answer a couple of Super Chats here, and then we'll get into SmackDown, then we'll preview Clash, and then I will get out of here. I can probably stream for about another 30 minutes, and then we got to call it quits because I have got to head off to work. Excuse me again. Finally getting over that cold that I had last week, too. I'm finally done with it, but I have this tiny, like 10% lingering cough left. It's not much, but it's still a little bit of a nuisance, so I apologize for that. I also want to acknowledge Raw and SmackDown this week both had a couple of really good singles matches. Raw had another match between Drew McIntyre and Cedric Alexander, which was fantastic. Very good match. It's really nice to see some of these 205 Live guys being produced. You know, we've had Ali, Buddy Murphy, and Cedric Alexander now all kind of get onto the main roster and have pretty big matches and pretty decent-sized roles on those shows. So it's nice to see that 205 Live is actually producing guys, and it's actually, you know, making a few new stars that WWE is saying, hey, you know, this guy might be good on the main roster, and we're seeing that more and more. It took a while for 205 Live to kind of get to this point, but it's rolling now. I think Drew Gulak is a wonderful champion, and when he finally drops that belt, he's another guy that I would love to see maybe come up to the main roster and do something. So McIntyre and Cedric Alexander had a hell of a match on Raw. McIntyre got the win there after he did lose to Cedric, I think the week before, perhaps. And they've had a little bit of a thing ever since Cedric showed up dressed as the janitor, and I thought that match was so good. I mentioned earlier on that Andrade took on Rey Mysterio in a 2 out of 3 falls match on Raw and beat him 2 straight falls. The week before, he tried to rip his mask off, actually did take the mask, I think, completely off, and I thought that was going to lead to like a mask match at SummerSlam or something like that. Those two guys were both left off the show, and now they've continued their feud on Monday Night Raw, and now I'm guessing it's over. You know, Andrade beat Rey convincingly, and Rey had a little kind of a backstage segment where he's kind of questioning his own abilities, so I'm not sure what they're doing there or what's going on with Rey, if maybe they're setting up a retirement angle. I mean, Rey is 40-something years old. He's been wrestling for 30 years now, and he is still in great shape, wrestling at a high level, but you do have to wonder if they are going to be wrapping Rey up, or Rey is going to wrap up his career here in the next few months or maybe a year or so. And I'm also wondering if we're going to see Dominic come back into play. He was on TV a little bit here the last couple of months. We haven't seen him in a while. I felt like maybe Samoa Joe would attack him or something like that. Don't know if that's still the case. Don't know if there's ever going to be a Dominic heel turn on his father in the future. Maybe there is, maybe there's not. But with Rey losing like this, it's clearly setting up something, and maybe we're getting close to a retirement angle with Rey Mysterio, maybe even at WrestleMania or something like that. I don't know. But whatever Rey decides to do, I wish him well. San Diego boy, we love Rey Mysterio. I mentioned Samoa Joe earlier on as well. He defeated Sami Zayn in a really quick match. This was set up backstage, and Joe is angry. He's pissed. He's still very frustrated that the fans were blaming him for the attacks on Roman Reigns. Roman Reigns even issued an apology to Joe, and we started speculating that maybe they could do some sort of an alliance between Samoa Joe and Roman Reigns. I think that might be nice. At this point, I would turn Samoa Joe babyface because he's done everything he can do as a heel. And what if it turns out that Joe is lying? What if Joe, as mad as he is at the fans for, you know, accusing him of being the one to attack Roman Reigns like this, what if this is all a ploy and he's been behind it the whole time? Well, there's one big problem with that. If he does that, then that means we're just going to get another match and another program between Samoa Joe and Roman Reigns, and we know who's going to come out on top of that. It's going to be Roman Reigns. And Samoa Joe, there's nobody left for him to lose to. He's dropped matches to literally everybody. He's a great promo. He's still a badass. I think he still has value. But as a heel, is anybody going to take him seriously as a world title contender or somebody that can actually defeat Roman Reigns? And if it did turn out that he was the one that tried to attack Roman or orchestrated the attacks, you think he's going to go into a match with Roman and beat him? No, he's going to lose. So at this point, I just think it's best to put Samoa Joe babyface. Might as well. And if you team him up maybe or have him align a little bit with Roman Reigns, or maybe they're fighting side by side against a faction or group, I don't know. Maybe it could help the fans get behind Samoa Joe. But that might be further off than what we think, because after Samoa Joe was done annihilating poor Sami Zayn, he gets on the mic and basically tells the fans to fuck off. So he's not going to be Mr. Happy Babyface now that Roman Reigns has apologized to him, and he's going to have this slow turn into a good guy. He's mad. He's mad at the fans. He's mad at us for thinking that he did it, and he basically said he will never forgive anybody for thinking that. So if they are going to turn Samoa Joe into a babyface, it might take a little bit longer because it looks like he's having none of it right now. But we'll have to see if something else happens, maybe another attack on Roman Reigns. Samoa Joe happens to be there, maybe helps out, maybe kind of gets forced into that babyface situation. We'll see where it goes. But I hope that he eventually kind of goes babyface and just goes on a tear. Kevin Owens is working as a babyface on SmackDown. I don't see why Samoa Joe can't do the same thing on Raw, or is Samoa Joe on SmackDown too? Because didn't he face Kevin Owens on Raw, or on SmackDown? Excuse me. See, I'm so confused. I can't even tell which brand all these guys are on. The last thing I do want to mention about Raw was the Stone Cold Steve Austin interview. He was interviewed via Skype by Michael Cole, and that thing was so funny. A lot of you guys photoshopped my face on Austin. I even put myself from my Monday Night Live Raw stream. I stuck that. I edited that photo with Michael Cole, and I put me on the other side and tweeted it. You guys got a big kick out of that, but just a really strange environment to see Austin in. He looked like he was some video game streamer talking to Michael Cole, and he was there pretty much to promote his new show on the USA Network and talk about Seth Rollins' really impressive win over Brock Lesnar. But I thought the Stone Cold interview was just funny because it's just not... We've never seen Austin with the headphones, in front of a computer. The via satellite stuff we've seen with him back in the day, but this just looked really funny, and I think a lot of fans got a kick out of it on Monday night. We'll move on to SmackDown Live here in a minute. Let me just pull up some stuff here real quick. I'm going to get you to some super chats here that I know I missed. Let me get all the way down here. Oh, yeah. Yeah, and this is for those of you who are listening to this after the fact on my website. If you've downloaded this, if you're listening on Spotify or Stitcher, I do apologize for kind of stopping here and answering a couple of donations, but I do want to do that. Say hi to a couple of my modifiers here. Catherine Rosario in the house, and Barry MK is here as well. I'm going to scroll up and try to grab some of these super chats. Then we'll talk about SmackDown and Clash of Champions, and then I'll probably get out of here. I want to thank Nathan Hansen for $1.99 here in Corbin. Has a good chance to be King of the Ring. Yeah, buddy, we talked about that. Corbin is one guy that I can see WWE have win this thing, but to me, when you look at the field, there are so many better options. But Corbin is right on the top of my list. When it comes to heels, it's probably going to be him or Drew McIntyre or who was my other guy? Maybe Samoa Joe. But yeah, Corbin, I don't even want to think about that, buddy. That scares me shitless. Stone Cold times 10. Thank you for the $2. SmackDown's debut on Fox is the day before your birthday. Nice. Well, if you live in the LA area, come on down to SmackDown. I'm going to be there that night at Staples Center and looking forward to meeting a lot of you guys. Thank you for your support, brother. Rude Killer, thanks for the $1. No question there, but you sent over $1. You are awesome. And I think we got one more coming in. Oh, here's another one from Mike Witt for $5. Thank you very much, dude. Watching your top 10 WrestleManias commentary right now. I'm up to number 5. Really good stuff. You should do a top 10 worst manias. That's a great idea. WrestleMania 2 is your least favorite. I should do a top 10 least favorite or worst WrestleManias. WrestleMania 2 is on my list as well. I think nothing is worse than WrestleMania 11. Another WrestleMania that I actually attended in Philly was WrestleMania 15. I thought that one sucked. WrestleMania 16 was no good. And yeah, WrestleMania 2 was brutal. So yeah, Mike, if I do that video, WrestleMania 2 will be pretty high up on the countdown. And there's one more coming in here? There is, $9.99. Thank you, Brett. Thanks for the $10, dude. You are awesome. Just hopped onto the video and wanted to support this awesome show. I appreciate it, man, and thank you to everybody that's hanging out here today for this live broadcast. And like I said, these will continue to get better. This will be a work in progress. Like I said, the camera is going to get sharper. I'm going to have my new webcam hooked up here probably in the next couple of episodes, and I will slowly get better about how I format this and how we go forward and all of that. So thank you for your early patience here. By the time we get to the end of the year, I would like to think that this Winged Eagle podcast is going to be flowing smoothly and we got our act together. But until then, it might be a little sketchy here and there, but I will do my best, guys. I'm trying to. Let's move on to SmackDown Live here before I get into Clash of Champions, and then at the very end here, if there is some time, I will answer a few questions in the chat. Maybe there's a news item or news story that I omitted and did not mention here. Maybe I didn't hear about it. So if you want to hear me talk about all that, hit me with that in the chat, and I'll get to it at the end of the podcast, because I probably will be getting off here in the next 20 or 30 minutes. But the first thing I want to mention about this past week's SmackDown Live show was the awesome match. Raw had an awesome match, and SmackDown had an awesome match. Roman Reigns versus Buddy Murphy. This was great. Now, Buddy Murphy is kind of involved in the Roman Reigns situation because he was the one that outed Eric Rowan. Roman Reigns confronted Buddy Murphy a couple of weeks ago on SmackDown, beat the shit out of him in the locker room until he agreed to tell him who was behind the attacks. Buddy Murphy fingered Rowan, and Rowan, of course, which denied it. Daniel Bryan denied it. Daniel Bryan cut a great promo on SmackDown. He is such a good evil heel, isn't he? My God, he's amazing. And he's angry at everybody. He's angry at the fans. He's angry at Buddy Murphy for accusing him and thinking that him or Rowan had anything to do with this. And they even get Buddy Murphy later on in the show to admit that he lied. And he went on to say Daniel Bryan and Eric Rowan apparently are going to reveal who Roman Reigns' attacker is next week on SmackDown. We'll have to see if that actually happens. But Roman Reigns versus Buddy Murphy had to have their match first, and it was fucking incredible. Hats off to Roman Reigns, who put on a hell of a performance here and gave Buddy Murphy a lot. And as much as I want to commend Roman, you got to commend Buddy. My God, what a performance. This match was great. And it shows that Roman can really go. I love it when Roman works with guys like this. You know, when Roman is not the only thing that the WWE cares about, he's a hell of a talent to watch. To say this guy can't work is foolish. Absolutely foolish. And he had a hell of a match with Buddy Murphy. Buddy Murphy with the amazing sell on the spear, literally flipped completely backwards when Roman hit him with the finish. And Buddy Murphy, I think, really had a breakout performance here. He hung with WWE's big dog. He hung with their poster boy and took him to the limit. I mentioned on Twitter that Roman Reigns wasn't wrestling at like someone who's in there with an inferior opponent. He's not wrestling as a top guy that's in there with a jobber. He's wrestling like a fucking belt is on the line. He's wrestling for his life, and Buddy Murphy nearly beat him. And I don't think Buddy Murphy needed to beat him. I don't think the wrong guy won here at all. And I was pleasantly surprised, I will say this, I was pleasantly surprised to see that not too many people were freaking out. Oh, it's stupid that Buddy Murphy lost. No, everybody understood that he's an up-and-coming guy, and being in a match like this elevates him, regardless of wins or losses. Just the fact that he's in this match at all elevates him. Just the fact that this match was not a squash elevates him. Because if this was a situation where it's angry Roman against a lower to mid-card guy and he goes in the ring and just annihilates him and spears him in 5 seconds and beats him, then that's not going to do anything for Buddy Murphy. But this was a match, a competitive match, a good match, and Roman Reigns even kind of showed him respect at the end, kind of gave him one of those little nods. Undertaker used to do that all the time. They would put guys with the Undertaker that they were trying to get over, the Luther Reignses, the Heidenreichs, the guys like that. And I remember one of the matches, it might have been against Heidenreich, where Taker just struggled to put him away. He finally did beat him, but after the match, he kind of looked at him like, damn, that guy really, took me to the edge, and he kind of nodded in respect. Roman Reigns did the same thing for Buddy Murphy. I think he even put him over on social media after the fact. So I'm hoping that this is a really good stepping stone for Buddy, and this leads to more for him because he can clearly go. He does not need to be pigeonholed on 205 Live. He had a nice run with the belt there, and now they're moving him on to do more main roster stuff. I think he can make a big splash in the King of the Ring if he can make it the semis, or have a couple of good matches there where he really impresses even more. And he can start building that momentum like Ali, like Cedric Alexander, and hopefully like some others, Drew Gulak one day. I'm hoping Johnny Gargano surfaces on the main roster at some point. So there's some of these smaller NXT 205 Live guys that I'm really happy to see be getting some opportunities and some big matches and featured with big-time opponents. That's what we wanted for the division. You know what I mean? So I like everything we saw. As far as who's going to wind up being behind Roman Reigns, what do you guys think? The more I look at it, excuse me, that stupid cold is still lingering. The more I look at it, the more I think about it. It would be fun if it was somebody completely out of left field. It would be fun if it was a swerve. But I'm starting to think that the best possible option here for the one to be behind the hit and run, or behind the attacks, I should say, is actually Daniel Bryan himself, which I think is where we're all expecting this to go. Daniel Bryan is claiming that he had nothing to do with it. They even got Buddy Murphy to admit that he lied. Bryan cut a scathing promo on the audience and Roman Reigns and vowed to reveal to the world next week who was behind the attacks. But when you look at the roster, is there any really better choice? Daniel Bryan, number one, is not really feuding with anybody right now. And I think it would just be best, even though we're not going to get a surprise factor, You know, because the surprise factor is not always good. We got a surprise factor in Austin's hit and run when it turned out to be Rikishi, and we were like, huh? It would have been much better if it was just Triple H all along, which is who it turned out to be in the end when WWE realized, oh shit, it should have just been Triple H, and then they made it that way and kind of factored him in the end there. But with Daniel Bryan, I think he's just the best possible option. He's going to do great in the promos. He's great at really embracing this like heel evil character. Daniel Bryan is coming across as evil. The way they were talking to Buddy Murphy in the locker room, kicking his ass, Daniel Bryan, he was basically face to face with Buddy Murphy. Daniel Bryan's nose was touching Buddy Murphy as he was like threatening him, you know, while Eric Rowan just beats the fuck out of him. So, you know, in the end, we might lose the surprise factor, but I think we're going to benefit and gain a lot from the program, from the storyline, from the Daniel Bryan promos, from Daniel Bryan's reasoning. For Daniel Bryan to justify in his head attempting to murder someone is going to be fun, because to be able to watch Daniel Bryan make the reason for him doing that a good one, to where he believes it and he thinks the fans should understand, you know, that's going to be a really interesting stretch to see how he words that and how he justifies that in promos. So I think Daniel Bryan would be the best option. I'm kind of just hoping it turns out to be him. They could still do a swerve. If it's not Daniel Bryan, who do you think it's going to be? Because I think whatever they're going to do here will probably be figured out in time for Clash of Champions and in time to put a match together. It's already been a couple of weeks. I don't think they're going to go 3 months here with Roman not knowing who's doing this. So I think we can rule out any megastar. You know, if it did turn out to be someone like The Rock, you know, because I still think there's time to get a Rock versus Roman Reigns match. I still think we could have that for WrestleMania at some point. I still think they could do some sort of a tie in there with these two cousins, maybe Rock putting Roman Reigns over in his retirement match or something. I would really like to think, I would like to keep my fingers crossed and hope that we haven't seen the last of The Rock in the ring. Even though he's getting older, I would like to see him have one more match. It would just mean a lot to me as a fan if he came back and had one match that we knew was going to be his last match. It doesn't have to be a Ric Flair send-off. Rock did not wrestle as long as Ric Flair. Rock's been absent from the business for about 10 years now, only coming in and out here or there, and he was gone for like 8 solid years. So he doesn't need the Flair send-off or anything like that, but he needs something. And he should have one final match to where he can put somebody over, you know, go out on his back, say goodbye to the audience, cut an awesome promo, and he can still come back in and do shit other times. You know, he can still come back in after that and rock bottom some fools here and there. We really haven't seen The Rock in a match in like, 5 years or something? So it's been a long time, and I would love to see him come back and do one more thing, but I don't think he really fits in here as Roman Reigns' attacker. So when you look at everybody, it would be boring if it was Baron Corbin. It would be boring if it was anybody on the roster, really, you know, with the exception of maybe, I don't know, if you turned Aleister Black heel or something like that. So I think Daniel Bryan is just the best option. I think he can cut the best promos. I think he can make this situation work the best. And this entire angle of Roman Reigns being attacked, I think is going to fall squarely on the shoulders of Daniel Bryan to get it over. I think Daniel Bryan, if it turns out to be him, is going to have to be the one to make the story memorable, because anybody else, I just don't know. Anybody else, it's just going to be somebody who's not as good on the mic as Daniel Bryan, and that person will eventually probably get annihilated by Roman Reigns. But if it does turn out to be Daniel Bryan, you can do so much other stuff. There's probably still another accomplice here. You know, Luke Harper. Has anybody followed Luke Harper on Twitter or taken a look at his Twitter page lately? Go look at the last 6 months of his tweets. They say the same thing every day. He says whatever day it is, like for example, today's Friday. So a little while ago, he tweeted out, "It's Friday, you know what that means." On Saturday, he tweets out, "It's Saturday, you know what that means." It's Sunday, you know what that means. He's been doing that shit every day since like March. Go take a look at his Twitter right now. It's crazy. So if it turns out to be Daniel Bryan, I think you can incorporate other guys. I think you can maybe bring in a Luke Harper. Maybe Luke Harper was the one behind the wheel of the car. Maybe Luke Harper was the one driving the forklift. Maybe Luke Harper is the one that's been doing all the dirty work, and he's going to be revealed at some point later on, maybe during the Daniel Bryan and Roman Reigns match. Maybe Daniel Bryan admits that it was him or something, I don't know, and you get the Daniel Bryan and Roman Reigns match at Clash of Champions. Luke Harper interferes, and you've got Bryan and Rowan and Harper together as a 3-man unit, along with the New Day and the OC and a lot of other 3-man units in the company right now. I think it'd be fun, and it would put Roman Reigns in an uphill battle, and maybe he can enlist the help of somebody like Samoa Joe to help take on these guys. So that is probably, if it was up to me, where I would like to see it go. But if it's going to be a surprise, if it's going to be somebody that's going to swerve us and hit us in the face and we didn't see it coming at all, great. I'm all for that. But who would it be? Who would it be that would be more interesting than Daniel Bryan? You know, because you got to think about the way the segments will go. The TV interviews, the shit, you know, that they interact, how they interact in the ring prior to the match, all that stuff. I think Daniel Bryan can make this angle work better than anybody else on the roster. So he's the one that I'm kind of hoping it's going to be. And hopefully we'll probably know this in a couple of weeks. Also, should be worth noting on SmackDown, Kevin Owens and Shane McMahon are still not done. Kevin Owens was in the ring to cut a promo. Shane McMahon comes out. We thought Shane McMahon might be gone. There was some talk after SummerSlam. Oh, this is going to be the end of Shane McMahon. He's going to be off TV for a while finally. Nope. The heel authority role continues. Shane McMahon comes out and fines Kevin Owens $100,000. And what's great about this is, and it's why I love Kevin Owens so much, normally when we see a segment like this where the authority figure fines a piece of talent, you're fined $50K or $100K in storyline, nobody cares because we know it's storyline. Kevin Owens, I almost have like mixed feelings about this. Kevin Owens, I want to give him props for selling the importance of the fine. I mean, he was even basically pleading with Shane McMahon, like, Shane, you need to reconsider. I got kids. I got a family to feed. $100,000 is a lot of money. He really was upset. And a lot of people are, one of the critiques they have of Kevin Owens versus Shane is they feel like it's a rehash of Austin versus McMahon because he's using the stunner. But I don't really think it's like that, because if Austin would have been told by Vince McMahon back in the day that he was fined $100,000, he would have said, fuck you, Vince. I don't give two shits. I'll kick your ass and stun you anyway. He would have totally no-sold it. So Austin would not have reacted the way Kevin Owens did. Even after the promo, they go to commercial. I think they come back. Owens is confronting Shane backstage in his office, even sits down on Shane's couch. 2 nights after they had a brutal match at the second biggest pay-per-view of the year, Owens is sitting there on Shane's couch trying to get Shane to reconsider the fine. That is not what Steve Austin would have done. The last thing Stone Cold would have done is tried to grovel at any McMahon's feet. So I like the fact that Owens sold the importance of a fine to where WWE's not treating it like it's a flimsy fine. You know, Owens is like, no, this is a big deal. It's $100,000. You know, but at the same time, he's kind of acting like a sap. You know, he should have been like, you know, fine, if it's going to be $100,000, might as well make it $200,000 and beat the shit out of Shane McMahon right there in the locker room. Instead, he smashed the TV. Instead, make it $105. You know, so I part of me likes it because Owens sells the importance of things, but at the same time, I thought it was a little bit silly that he would, you know, kind of beg for Shane McMahon to reconsider when he knows Shane McMahon's going to be a huge douchebag and do the exact opposite of that. But Owens also did a great job in his promo putting over the King of the Ring. Talked about how he used to watch it as a kid and how it was one of his early inspirations to become a wrestler and how important it would be to win it. And he even said winning the King of the Ring would be just as important to him as any of the titles he's ever won in the WWE. And this guy's a former Universal Champion, don't forget. So I appreciated Owens putting over the King of the Ring. And he's one of the reasons why I want to watch it. So I think Owens is one of the hottest stars in the company right now. And whenever this shit with Shane McMahon ends, I would like to see him get a run or a shot at the title. And maybe winning the King of the Ring could be a good stepping stone to do that. He had a one-on-one match against Samoa Joe. They put him in the ring with Samoa Joe on SmackDown as well, with Elias as the special enforcer. And Elias fast counted Kevin Owens out, 1, 2, 3, in his match. So the issue between Owens and Shane is not over. I'm guessing it will lead to one final match. Owens has got to be in the King of the Ring first. So I don't know if Shane McMahon maybe costs him one of his tournament matches. That leads to one more match at Clash. Maybe this time Shane's career is on the line. Maybe Owens is so mad, you're fucking with me, you're fucking with my money, you're fucking with my family, you're costing me to lose in tournaments. I want your career on the line this time. I put my career on the line at SummerSlam. Now it's your turn, asshole. Me versus you, no holds barred, anything goes. Whatever stip they want to put on this. And if I beat you, you are no longer in charge of SmackDown Live. You are out of my life. You are not going to ruin anybody else's life anymore. And that kind of looks like what they might do now between the two. And if it does lead to Shane truly being gone, then I guess it's okay. You know, I like Shane McMahon. I don't hate him. But I think the fans are really over him. But to be honest, much like Baron Corbin, he's a really great heel. I know the authority heel figure is played out, or the authority, or the heel authority figure, I should say, is played out. It's been overdone. It's really getting old. It's bad enough when Shane and Stephanie are out there. Or, I'm sorry, Triple H and Stephanie. Now you got Shane out there being such a douchebag. But he's a great douchebag. He's great. The way he talks, the way he says things, you just want to slap his face. So I think the fans are, again, I just wish they would admit when they see a good heel, when they have a good heel when they see one, because you got to remember when he came back in 2016, Shane McMahon got one of the loudest ovations I've ever heard in my 41 years of being a wrestling fan, ever, back in 2016. Fans were happy to see him back. Fans missed him, even though he's not a active competitor and a regular wrestler. He puts it all on the line in all of his matches, risks his life in every match he has. He does not go through there and walk through the motions. He does not sleepwalk through the match, and he's just out there to get a payday, and he's doing the bare minimum. This guy's putting his life on the line every time. So I've always appreciated that about Shane McMahon, that if he's not going to be a regular wrestler and he's going to take up a roster spot or take up a pay-per-view match spot that could go to somebody else, at least Shane is out there entertaining us. For the most part, his matches are good. His match with Taker where he fell off the cell, his match with AJ Styles is very good. He's had another great Hell in the Cell match with Kevin Owens. Every time he's in a match, he's flying from the top rope to the announce desk. How he's not snapping his spinal cord in half, I have no idea. So I will say that for Shane, that he goes out there and really puts his career on the line for the sake of entertainment. But it's just getting a little bit old, seeing him out there every week fucking with people. So maybe this eventually leads to the end of Shane McMahon, and I hope that it does. We also saw Charlotte picking up a win over Ember Moon. Ember has not looked very good. I think she lost the week before her title match at SummerSlam, got beat by Bayley at SummerSlam, and now drops a match to Charlotte. At this point with Ember, I'd turn her heel. Might as well. Have her snap and beat the hell out of somebody one week. She's not getting opportunities. She's being held down. I do the same thing with the Kabuki Warriors. Asuka and Kairi Sane got a title shot on Raw. I don't even think I mentioned that, against Alexa and Nikki, and lost. And it's just frustrating as hell what they're doing with some of these women, especially when the roster needs some good women. The funny thing about the women's division, and people say, oh, there aren't contenders or anything like that, or there's not, you need some more NXT people. Baszler needs to come up right away to strengthen the women's division. It should be strong. Between Ember Moon, Kairi Sane, and Asuka, those three ladies right there alone should be enough to add a ton of depth to that roster. But instead, they're doing shit. Sasha Banks coming back on Monday felt great because it was a shot in the arm. It was exactly what the women's division needed. So why can't they just do that with some of the other talent that they have there that's already good? Asuka defeated Becky Lynch completely clean at the Royal Rumble. That doesn't even sound right when you say it out loud now. So what the hell are they doing? To me, it wouldn't have mattered. Asuka could have lost to Charlotte last year at WrestleMania. Wouldn't have done her any harm. She could have bounced right back. She could have beat Charlotte in a rematch. She could have gotten another run with the title. She could have still been dominant. None of that would have even mattered. But she's literally been downhill ever since she got to the main roster. And Kairi Sane, I think they just forget is there. And she's just stuck there with Asuka, with Paige of all people as her manager, which just doesn't work and doesn't match, and I hate. So if WWE feels they have any issues or problems with the women's division and its depth, those can be easily fixed. Those can be easily fixed with the great talent you already have on the roster, you dummies. So that shit's frustrating, But as far as Charlotte beating Ember Moon on SmackDown, I don't care. Charlotte's the queen. She's the most decorated woman and probably always will be. I think she's already there. I think WWE is positioning her to be her the Ric Flair version of the women's division. She's going to be her father, only with the women. And I like Charlotte. I'm not shitting on Charlotte. I'm not one of those people that thinks she's shoved down her throats or pushed too much. I don't care. As far as I'm concerned, Charlotte can win as many matches as she wants. I'm not going to complain. And she had a big victory over Trish Stratus up until the main event. I think that was my favorite match on the card. Props to Trish at SummerSlam for really putting the work in and having a great match with Charlotte. It far exceeded what I expected from those two women. I like the dream match concept. I thought Charlotte and Trish would be good and passable, but I did not think it would be a great match. And it was a great match. And up until maybe Seth and Brock, which I really enjoyed, I thought that was the best match on the card. So for Charlotte to keep on rolling here and defeat Ember Moon, It's probably the way to go. Sorry to say that. And now you have to wonder about Bayley and her championship run and who she's going to face at Clash of Champions. I have a feeling she's going to be facing Charlotte. Don't know that for sure, but with Charlotte's big win at SummerSlam and now defeating Ember Moon, she doesn't really have anything else to do. You would think that would be enough to earn her a title shot. They might do a number one contenders match on SmackDown. Wouldn't be surprised if we get that next week or something. But in the end, we might have Charlotte defeating Bayley, and the fact that that takes place at Clash of the Champions, you know, a show and an event that her father had many title defenses and I think a couple of victories at, it would be likely that she would take the belt at the Clash, because isn't the Clash also in North Carolina? I think it is. I got to look that up. I want to say the Clash is in Charlotte. So if you put Charlotte and Bayley at the Clash in Charlotte, how do you not put the belt back on the Queen? I know that sucks. I know it's the worst thing ever. Oh my God. Charlotte's champion again. I got to cancel my network. Get over yourself. Not a big deal. The main event of SmackDown, we saw a six-man. I think it was the main event. Was it the main event? Six-man match with Randy Orton and the Revival taking on the New Day. Randy Orton and the Revival scored the win. Randy Orton beat the shit out of all the New Day members. I think he RKO'd them all and nailed Kofi with a sick-ass RKO at the very end. And you know that's going to lead to another match between the two of them. I did predict Kofi to retain at SummerSlam, but I also said that it's probably going to lead to a return, and Randy Orton could likely take the belt at the next pay-per-view. I think they might do that. I think you might finally see the end of Kofi's run at the Clash against Randy Orton, because whatever Seth Rollins does, I'm certain he's going to retain his title. So you might want to do a big title change here and have Randy Orton win the world title and maybe Charlotte win the women's title at the Clash of Champions. I think that's likely, and whatever they announce for Kofi and Orton, I'm probably going to predict Orton next time around. I think he's going to get another run here. And Kofi is another guy that a lot of fans debate, you know, whether his title run has been worthy and all of that, and he's a mid-carder and he needs to give up the belt already. Whatever they do with Kofi, his run is probably coming to an end really soon here. I enjoyed Kofi's title run. I understand that he's not Brock Lesnar and he's not CM Punk and he's not Randy Orton. He's not a top-level star, but I'm really happy with his title win. I'm glad he got that moment at WrestleMania. He certainly deserves it. And every now and then putting the belt on a guy that just deserves it is not the worst thing in the world. Kofi's an amazing dude. Great documentary up on the WWE Network right now as well. You know, if you've got your doubts about Kofi or you're sick of him being champion, I think you'd have to be a heartless piece of shit to watch that and not be happy for the guy. So for me, I choose to be happy for him. Whenever somebody that you don't like wins the title, what you have to remember is that wrestling does not end with that title victory. And I think a lot of times that's always been the fans' problems. Years ago when John Cena would win a belt, or God forbid when Roman Reigns would win a belt, the fans would like lose their mind as if wrestling ceases to exist after that day. It doesn't. If somebody that you don't want to see be champion is champion, wrestling moves very fast, extremely fast. You blink and somebody's title run is over. So if you got to have one champion that you don't like for 6 months, is it going to kill you? No. I like Kofi. I'm happy for him. But I think his run will definitely come to an end probably next month, if not soon. Maybe Survivor Series or possibly that first ever SmackDown on Fox. If Kofi does survive Randy Orton at Clash of Champions, maybe they do one final match on SmackDown on Fox, and that's where you put the belt on Randy Orton. That would be cool for me to be there live to see a WWE title change. I have not been to a SmackDown show since 2005. It was one of the SmackDowns before WrestleMania 21. It was in Raleigh, maybe 2 or 3 weeks before WrestleMania 21. That was the last SmackDown show I've ever been to. So maybe if they hold off Kofi and Randy Orton for SmackDown on October 4th, that would be fun, at least for me. So anyway, I got to wrap this up. I got to get out of here. I got to leave in about 5 minutes, but I'm going to stop by the chat real quick and answer a couple of more super chats, maybe a couple of more questions. If there's any other super chats in here, it looks like there is. First one I'll answer is another one from Chris Ludecki. Thank you, brother, for another $5. You are awesome. Good to see you in here as always. As you say, you might go to the first FS1 SmackDown. If I do, you want to meet up there? Yes, absolutely. Just DM me if you're going to SmackDown on October 4th. I've already gotten a bunch of DMs. It looks like there's going to be some sort of a meetup organized. Might even include Aaron Rift from the No DQ area and YouTube channel. We've been talking a little bit as well. So yes, Chris, there's definitely going to be an opportunity to meet up. And when I was there at SmackDown, or when I was there for Survivor Series back in November, I met a bunch of you. And that was a lot of fun. So yeah, hit me up, DM me on Twitter. And as we get closer here, we will organize something. I will be staying at the Marriott right across the street from the arena. And there's a lot of bars and restaurants downstairs right across the street from the building. So we'll definitely set something up here in the next few weeks. See if there's any other issues, questions, or news stories I need to mention. I'm just going to read a couple of these here. No, nobody's really saying too much. John Cena, Luke Harper, yeah, just a few random opinions here. Okay, so it doesn't look like I really forgot anything. I was worried that there was some big news story that I omitted or forgot to talk about, but it does not look like it. So yeah, anyway, what do y'all think? This is kind of how it's going to be going forward. Like I said, this will continue to improve quality-wise. My camera is going to be a lot better as soon as I get the new computer in here and I hook up the new camera and get everything a little bit sharper. Probably will have an official intro coming in the next few weeks as well. I did mention during the pilot episode that this whole thing is going to be a work in progress. I'm going to have to get better at it, and I will continue to get better. As far as today goes, I feel like I did pretty well. I feel like I stayed on point with my notes for the most part. And I didn't have too many issues, and this should be listenable. That's another big issue I have is if I'm going to be doing these podcasts live and I release the audio on my website, I want to make sure that it's not boring and it's not hard to listen to because, you know, I might be pausing more than normal, or maybe answering a question in the chat, or maybe there's a knock on the door, or my cat throws up at my feet or something like that. Hopefully those will not be issues going forward. And if you do want to download the audio of this podcast, just keep in mind it's not going to be available until later on tonight, probably about 5 or 6 hours from now. It'll be available for download on my website. You can find it on Stitcher, Spotify, iTunes, and all that stuff. But I'm not going to be able to put it up there until I get home from work, and I literally have to walk out the door in 5 minutes. So thank you very much for sitting with me on this first ever official Winged Eagle podcast. I'm excited it's here now. I'm excited to do this every week. It's really going to free up a lot of time for me to work on other YouTube projects. And I appreciate your patience with me getting this together and coming up here and officially launching this here in mid-August. You guys have been awesome. I have not been up here really for an official podcast since right after WrestleMania 35 when my dad passed away, and I decided that I had to kind of revamp a few things on the channel. So you guys have been awesome sticking with me, remaining loyal, remaining supportive. I cannot thank you enough, and I will catch you in just a couple of days. Make sure you tune in this coming Monday on the YouTube channel. I'll be up here live reacting to Monday Night Raw, and don't worry, you'll have my kitchen back in the background on Monday night. So you guys have a great weekend. Thanks again for listening, and I'll talk to you guys in just a couple of days. Until then, peace.